Welcome to my new video. I wanted to buy a Mercedes-Benz with a OM606 turbo diesel. They only came out in the United States in 1998 and 1999 year. But this guy that was selling this car, he marked it as a 1999 turbo diesel. So here I'm here looking at it, and this thing is all dirty and not in the best shape. So I went to open the hood to see the turbocharged OM606, and what I saw is a naturally aspirated OM606 3-liter inline 3-liter diesel engine. And I went to see the manufacture date, and it's 12 of 1995. So this is 1996 non-turbo. It is rare. Actually, it's a slick top. It doesn't have the sunroof, and that is really rare in the USA for Mercedes-Benz to have no sunroof. And I was looking at this, and the fog light was on the ground because they were towing it. So I put it inside, and what I saw here is a glow plug relay. So there's an issue with the glow plugs in this. What I'm doing here is initially just inspecting the car because the owner told me to come check it out. And it's not running. It doesn't want to start. He said that he left it sitting and doesn't want to start. And he bought a new battery and doesn't want to start. And it's also lowered. The springs were cut. I'm gonna find out later, but the springs are cut. It's all lowered. See, why would you lower E-Class diesel? It's so slow. Then I open the trunk, and there's a bunch of trash in there. It's typical. Every time I go look at the car, the seller doesn't even do a minimum job of just cleaning out the trash. Forget the vacuum, you just take the trash out of the car. So I'm looking at the dents. Yeah, it's a new battery. He put the new battery in. It's a $200 battery. So he wanted like $2,000. I offered him, 800 bucks if you tow it to my house. So he eventually did because I was the only person interested in it. So what I'm doing right now is checking the codes. And he does have the codes for the glow plugs. And this engine has a pre-chamber, so the glow plugs are really important on it. You have to always heat up the plugs, glow plugs, to be able to start. So I'm looking at the replacement relay, and I'm checking out connections from the glow plug heater relay that heats up the glow plugs all the way to the glow plugs to see if any of the glow plugs are bad. And I found out like two glow plugs are dead, but two glow plugs that are dead are not going to prevent it from starting, especially in the hot climate that I live in. So I didn't want to wait until the daylight, so I was anxious to start this. So I was looking if there's any air in the system, and I'm looking at the fuel pump here, and I see that there are leaks. That's a common spot for these to leak at the pump. There are O-rings that age, and they start leaking fuel there, and they'll leak the fuel there, and then they'll develop air in the system. They'll suck up the air in the system. So in order to clear that, you gotta crank the engine for like 3 minutes, which is ridiculous. No battery is gonna sustain that. You have to jump it from another running vehicle, get the ampage up like I'm doing right here. So all I did is I jumped it from another vehicle, charged the battery fully in the car, and I was cranking it for like 3 minutes and eventually started. You just had to clear all the air out of the system. And it's running fine. So I got this vehicle towed to my house for $800 and it's running, so it was a risk because I didn't know what was if the seller is lying or not, but he told the truth. He said that he shut it off and after 1 month it wouldn't start. It will drain the battery before it starts, so it's all because of that. Those O-rings on the pump, they'll fail and they'll suck the air in the system, and that's what's gonna happen on these. So I took the intake manifold off, and there was a lot of carbon buildup because this engine uses the EGR system that just plugs up all the intake ports. So I'm just using the oven cleaner to soak it up, get all the grime out. So nobody cleaned the intake systems since the car was new, and you can see a lot of it's coming out. Look at that. This is the special tool that clears the channel for the glow plug. What happens with these glow plugs on these engines is that they're gonna bake in. All the carbon gonna bake on them, and they're really difficult to remove. And they break. They usually break if you don't change these glow plugs on these engines. They're really thin and long. So I managed to remove all of the glow plugs without a problem except one. One of them broke, but the one that broke it's good. So it broke, and then I just left it in there because you got to drill it out, and that can be a problem. So what I'm just doing is cleaning all the glow plug chambers, make sure they're clean. Got the replacement parts, usually just clips and new glow plugs, some fuel line, oil filter, new glow plugs, Bosch original, really critical. These clips that hold the fuel lines in, so when the engine is vibrating, the fuel lines are not shaking and breaking. Without these, those lines will crack and they'll suck up air inside, and you're gonna be stuck. Also, these plastic lines, the new O-rings, new shut-off valve. Actually, the shut-off valve is old. I'm just gonna replace the O-rings in it. Yeah, these clips are important. When the engine vibrates, you don't want these lines touching each other, grinding against each other. It's gonna wear out the line and you're gonna be stuck. So I replaced them all. It's got a K&N air filter in there because this engine doesn't use any sensors like a hot air mass sensor. It doesn't have a problem with the oily K&N filter. So I'm purging the system now. I'm just using the carburetor 12-volt pump just to get the system going, get all the air out of it before I start cranking after replacing those fuel pump O-rings. Really important, otherwise you're just going to be cranking for like 3 minutes and probably burn up the starter. On these engines, the most important sensor is the crankshaft position sensor. And sometimes these get loose. And then you'll have no start issue. The shutoff valve will not turn off. Like without this, the computer will not move the rack on the fuel pump. It is electrically controlled. It uses the electrical gas pedal, reads that, and then electronically moves the rack inside a fuel pump and sends it to computer. So the crankshaft position sensor is the most important one. It has to read the RPM in order to move the crank and get the injection going. And those sensors do fail. And then the connection to it fails also. So it's critical. This engine had a wrong thermostat in it, and somebody was messing with it. So I don't know what the deal is there. In order to fit it, there's a notch on that outlet. In order to fit it, they cut the thermostat. I mean, it's ridiculous what people are doing. So I had a used one, good used one. So I went in and tested it out to see if it's good, if it opens in the pot of boiling water. Got the new O-ring in there, cleaned up the outlet, and that's the correct thermostat. It was kind of hard to find. No parts store had it, special order. So I'm glad that I had this used one. And I found some connectors here that I didn't know where they go, but I found out that somebody installed this engine from like a 97 in a 96. So there was a big difference between 1996 and 1997, the way the vacuum pump is, and intake manifold has two more actuators. So I guess somebody installed a harness from 1997 onto 1996. So I had extra connectors laying around there. And the vacuum pump from 97. So it lacks the nipple. It doesn't have the nipple to feed the vacuum to the rest of the car for the AC HVAC flap operation and for the transmission and the EGR valve operation. So I had to make in that vacuum line that goes to the brake booster, I had to create a nipple to create a source, vacuum source for the rest of the items. As you saw there, I created a vacuum source and I checked all of the live data on the legendary snap-on scanner, the brick. So I needed some vacuum line, and so I just went to Home Depot and bought some sprinkler hard line for the sprinklers. As you can see, I have that code because the engine harness on these 1996 engine harness is an issue. It's like the insulation on it kind of broke down and wires are touching each other. So I have to pull the intake manifold back off and deal with it. I managed to find the stock springs from some guy that was trashing his W210. I had to buy a special tool in order to install them. $50 from eBay. You just have to have it. And I bought this rubber bushing that goes between the steering column and the chassis. And actually this is from 2001 year and didn't fit. I had to modify it. This is how you use the tool. You just have to have it. You could probably use a jack, but it's dangerous to work with springs like that. You just have to have the tool for safety reasons. You can see where the stock springs was cut in order to lower the vehicle improperly, and they took out 2 coils. For the rear ones, I didn't have to use the tool. That's the bushing or rubber boot between the steering column and the chassis. I had to cut it slightly in order to fit it on my 96, because 96 I think they discontinued, and this always fails on these early models, early 3 years. This is how it looks now with the stock springs. It's back where it needs to be, and these wheels are from C230. I just had a spare ones and didn't have to spend any money on that.
Hey, how you doing today?
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
So did it allow you to change the opacity, or is it still at 20?
Well, it is an opacity test, but they had you under 4,000 pounds, and it's over 4,000. the right weight class, and it's still a 20, but it did pass.
Did it pass?
Oh yeah.
What the hell? Now it did pass?
Yeah. It
So
passed.
they put the reader at the wrong place then, right?
Yeah, I don't know what they did over there, but yeah, everything, all standards are fine, and that's what popped up.
All right.
Okay.
It is typical now for the government workers at the emission testing facilities not to do their job right and not knowing how to do their job right. So the headliner's sagging, and instead of ripping it out and doing all that kind of work, I'm just gonna spray some spray adhesive on it and just stick it back on up there. That's not the right way to do it, but it's just a quick fix. It's an old car, it's a project, so I don't need to spend 3 days doing this, taking it off and removing old glue and applying a new one. Here I'm back at the junkyard. There's one W210 and I need few bits and pieces from it. These are all over junkyards now, so there's no problem getting any sorts of parts for Mercedes made in the late 90s, in 2000s, and so on. So I got bits and pieces here, the lower lip for the front bumper, mud guards for the front. The vinyl seats were all soaked with soda and coffee or whatever, so there's no way getting that out. You just have to soak the whole seat in water and get it all loose. And I don't know, man. Like, I would never let anybody drink cups of soda in my car like that when we're driving. Brake oil or brake fluid is old, so I'm just gonna suck it out there and put some new .4 in there. And later I'm gonna bleed it at the wheels. This fluid gets old, it's gonna absorb moisture from the air, so it's a good thing to replace it. There was a dent in the rear quarter, so I'm just pulling it out a little bit. Maybe get it ready for the Bondo work. Not the best way to do it, but it's just another quick fix. I just have to cut it from inside and then pull it out and then weld it from inside again. And then get it ready for Bondo. It's like close enough. Getting ready to replace the transmission mount on these cars. It gets soaked in oil and it sags. A rubber collapses and it sags. See right there? It collapses down and then it's not doing a absorbing anymore and it's just laying down on the rubber. The good thing is still cheap. See that? It just lays down. It's an easy replacement. And I put some hose in there just to keep it up, just to help it keep it up, last longer. Maybe I'm just repairing the wire that was cut. Solder it back on because it was cut and then it was just like spliced together, so I'm just doing it properly. I think this is for the reverse light. Yeah, inspecting everything routed the correct way. Then up there you can see the selector bushing. Those selector bushings go bad, and then you have a really loose shifting positions. So I managed to put that in there back in there. Yeah, I'm connecting the diagnostic tool, checking all the codes. Yeah, I was having the airbag light popped on, and I wanted to see what's going on with that. This is child recognition and ignition circuit. So I just cleared the code and it went away. Or it didn't went away with the snap-on, so I had to hook up the Autel, the Chinese scanner, to clear it for some reason. Yeah, the coolant temperature gauge was all messed up. Oh no, the instrument cluster light was bad. Like I wasn't getting any light at the instrument cluster, so I had to trace down the wires and look up at the diagram. And it's kind of I found the cause of it because this car was parked somewhere at the edge of the town. And here in Arizona, what we have in desert are pack rats. Those are the rats that live in the desert, and they just eat wires. If you park the car at the edge of the town and those pack rats get there, they're gonna start chewing the wires up. So I was like looking at tracing the wires, and I found out that it has something to do with the lighter, with the cigarette lighter in the car. It gets the power from the cigarette lighter in the car to the instrument cluster for the lighting. And Mercedes-Benz factory wiring diagrams are just horrible. It's a mess. It's like really hard to follow. I'm also gonna start installing a aftermarket CD player without cutting any wires because the car came with one, but it didn't work. Yeah, so I had to dig all this thing out to get to the lighter, and look what I found. Where the pack rat was eating through the wires, and this is like a nightmare for a car electrician to find that. You really have to spend time and trace all the wiring to find a break in the wire. It's like the most difficult thing to find. So basically the rat got in there in all the small crevices inside a car, and you're just eating through the wires. And just, yeah, even more wires down there. But that one's good. I'm just gonna insulate it with the electrical tape. Right there, I'm testing the intensity of the light up and down. It gets controlled by the cluster. Like all the small lights inside the vehicle are controlled by the instrument cluster. See, the CD player didn't work, so I'm going to put another one in. But good thing that they didn't cut the original harness. They put some aftermarket one in there, so that's going to be good. I took the door cards off because they were flapping. They weren't secured properly, and it's the same thing with the BMWs, like late '90s BMWs. I guess the Mercedes uses the same company for the car door cards. Just the glue comes off, becomes soft, and all these rivets, mounts, plastic mounts that glue onto the door cards, they come off. So I glued them back on using the polyurethane constructive adhesive. This thing is good. You can buy this in the Home Depot, and it works really good. It bonds really good and lasts. Yeah, I got the speaker grill fixed too. Got the door cards cleaned up a little bit. I'm changing the no, this is when I was at the junkyard, and because the cabin air filter is located behind a glove box and it's kind of pain in the ass to remove. Nobody changes these cabin air filters. Just look at how much junk is in there, and you're breathing all that crap. Look, this is another one. Look at that. This one is a little bit less dirty. I was just recording just to show it to you guys. On these W210 Mercedes Benz, they costs money to replace this because you have to take the glove box off, and not everybody can do that. So yeah, I bought new filters for mine. Install them because I gotta get ready to get the air conditioning fixed. It's not working on this car. Like the air compressor wasn't creating any vacuum or pressure or anything. It was just dead. So I took it off and I took it apart. I took the AC compressor apart and I found out it was just ran low on oil, and just all the pistons in there are just like at least one or two pistons are like scored the bore, and once that happens it just loses all the compression and suction. Basically just a pump. Look at that. That's why oil is extremely important in a air conditioning compressor. You got to use the right amount and right type. So I got to order another compressor online, the cheap ones. The cheap ones from eBay, and look at that. So I got the cheap one from eBay, and because they didn't really put any packing material in there, it got all damaged, it got all beat up. The pulley got beat up. See, that mounting point got beat up. You got dropped. See all of the cuts on the box because it was dropped all around. That's the problem. You order something online, you don't see the item, especially these Chinese garbage ones for $100 from all these companies, in USA that peddle these junk parts. It was just like dropped around, and then it's really critical for the AC compressor to be all perfect, otherwise it's gonna leak freon. You're gonna do the job for waste time doing this job and everything. So unbelievable. So I managed to. So I complained on eBay, and they gave me the money back. I showed them how it was damaged. They didn't even want it back. They just gave me money back. So I'm just testing now for the leakage. I put it in the water. I'm testing for a leakage to see if it leaks. If it doesn't leak, I'm gonna install it like this. Putting some pressurized air in there. And I managed to fix the pulley just a little bit with the pry bar. it got bent a little bit during shipping, so I just pried on it in a few places, and I got it to spin straight, and just flushed. Instead of buying the dryer, filter dryer, I just flushed it a little bit with the, I don't know what I used. I think I used the acetone. No, the, what's it called? That liquor lacquer thinner. I used a lacquer thinner. So basically, it's something between the gasoline and acetone. You're just gonna flush it out a little bit without dissolving any of the paint or plastics inside. Because I don't want to spend money on that, and that's a critical part. Put some correct oil, 8 ounces, 6 ounces, in the compressor. At this point, I'm just trying to make it work cheapest way possible, because I'm just gonna sell this car. A diesel. It's not turbo. It's naturally aspirated, and then it's slow, and the gas mileage on it is 28 miles per gallon. That's not that good for a diesel, naturally aspirated diesel. Getting the vacuum pump, getting all the junk out, getting ready to put in some Freon in there, 134A, making sure it's not leaking. Yeah, getting ready to sell this car because I'm not, there's no point, there's no benefit. If this was a OM606 turbo, I would keep it, but because it's naturally aspirated, it's not something that I want to keep around. So you're getting the vacuum out. I was lacking one adapter, so I had to put 2 cans of Freon like this, the Walmart way. Not the best way to do it, but it'll work. Yeah, got it all in. Usually the way I do it, I put in Freon, and then when it starts being really cold, I stop putting in. See, it's awesome. It's ice cold. It's better not to overfill. It's better to underfill it than to overfill it when it comes to AC Freon. Yeah, it's all nice, ice cold, and I'm just driving around testing it out.
You okay, man?
Yeah, it's running perfect now. The AC is working, and I often see old Mercedes-Benz diesel like these and older ones like this 123 chassis. People love them, especially these 123. People love them. They have them. You see them often on the road, but not this one, not the W210, because in USA diesel is more money, slightly more money than regular gas. I mean, and if the gas mileage is not any better than the gas models, what's the point of having it? And I'm just looking at the first aid kit here. It's not even made in Germany, it's made in USA. First aid kit, that's like a requirement in Germany to have it in your car. It's like a law, but not in the USA. But they still put it in the Mercedes Benz from 1990s. All right, so that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Like the video, and I'll see you next time.